Everyone, please rise. We'll begin our meeting today. Welcome to the Cade Museum for this Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting on this Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. My name is Tom Collette, your Sergeant at Arms. For our guests and visiting Rotarians watching this on Zoom, please identify yourself in the chat. And if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, please register your participation. Send an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. I love the cool, crisp morning we had this morning. Fall is definitely here. And to help us get in the mood for fall, as we do at every meeting, to start with a song and the pledge. You ready? Here's Pete.
Fellow Rotarians, last night I had a dream. And in my dream, I was seated on a bench in a room that was sort of like a sauna, but it wasn't a sauna, it was but a room like that. And it had a mist and he couldn't see very well. And so I looked to my left, and on the bench next to me was my friend Laurie Vidal. And we were just dressed in our skivvies. And you can imagine that. And then I looked further to the left on the bench, and my friend Ed Ellett was sitting there. And we looked at each other wondering what we were there for. All of a sudden, the door adjacent to Ed opened, and this terribly ugly creature came out. She had warts on her nose, and her long black hair went all the way down her spine. And she was just, ugly. She went up to Ed and grabbed him by the hand. And as she did, a voice echoed through the chamber and said, "Ed Ellett, for all the sins you have committed during your lifetime, you are condemned to spend eternity with this creature." And the creature grabbed Ed, went out the door, slammed the door, and Ed was gone. It was just me and Laurie there. And so we sat there for a minute, and sure enough, the second door opened adjacent to Laurie, and a creature that was even worse came out. I won't describe it, just worse than the first one, came over and grabbed Laurie by the hand. And as she did, a voice echoed and said, "Laurie Vidal, for all the sins you have committed during your lifetime, you're condemned to spend eternity with this creature." She grabbed Laurie and yanked him out the door, closed the door. And I was just sitting there by myself. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? And so I was scared, but the door opened, and lo and behold, Christy Brinkley came out. She was dressed in a chiffon thing, and she had perfume that sort of emanated through the room. And I thought, gosh, this is great. This is great. So she came over and she gently lifted my hand. And as she did, a voice echoed through the chamber and said, "Christy Brinkley, for all the sins you have committed during your life." Okay. We're going to sing God Bless Him. Oh, I'm sorry. My Country 'Tis of Thee. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank God, the longest joke in Rotary Club of Gainesville history has ended. Thank you, Pete. And speaking of thanking God, our invocation offered today is right behind me. Laurie Vidal.
So I really wasn't into that joke. And then I started hearing my name. I said, I better listen to this here, see where this thing's going. On a serious note, I was just brought up to speed that Dalton Birch's bride of many years and gay has gone through a fall and is having hip surgery as we speak. And the fall is a result of some neurological things that are going on. So if you just lift up Ann Gay, if you had a chance to get to know her, she is a very sharp lady. And so this is kind of a really tough thing, what she's going through right now. So she is in surgery at this moment. So let's remember her as we pray. Let's pray together. We do lift up Ann Gay right now, and thank you for Dalton and Ann Gay and just what they have meant to this Rotary Club for so many, many years, and what they've meant to our community here and both in Williston and other places where they've served. So we lift them up before you, lift up Ann Gay before you now, and thank you for the ministry of Dalton Birch. And today we are so thankful for the gracious safety given to most of us in our immediate area here in Florida. And we now lift up those who are still in need in our state, and particularly other countries hit hard by Hurricane Ian. Refresh and encourage those in need and provide for whatever needs are there. Thank you for the mediums established to support and restore those in need from Hurricane Ian. And we do also right now, just thank you for the calm after the storm, the crisp, cool air, and the opportunity to open the windows and breathe deeply, the first taste of fall. Refresh our spirits now too, as we come to listen, to recommit, and continue to work at being good stewards of the incredible resources we have here in our part of Florida. And as we listen and process through these thoughts, again, help us to think through what is truth and what is beneficial to all concerned, as we have pledged to do as Rotarians. I pray these things through your creative spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Lori. If you're a visiting guest or a visiting Rotarian, please remain standing. Jason Shank has the microphone to bring around for you. And while he's getting to you, how about a nice round of applause? We don't recognize him enough. Our pianist tickling the ivories, Gordon back there. Thank you, Gordon.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I've got today as my guest, John Thomas, who is a Hurricane Ian refugee, and will be returning back hopefully soon to Florida Gulf Coast University.
Welcome, John.
Thanks, Jason. Today, my guest is John Moran, well-known photographer and artist here in Gainesville, nature photographer and friend of Cynthia Barnett.
Hey, everybody. My guest today is Ben Stone, and he is one of the principals with Straight Line Construction.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I have two guests with me today. The first one is Anthony Trina. Anthony is a fellow South Floridian like myself, and he grew up in a really cool place called Coconut Grove. Yeah. And then his business partner is Calvin DiNicolo. Calvin and Anthony both own a company called Tropical American Furniture. What? Timber, Tropical American Timber, that's it. And they import beautiful woods from South America for furniture and things like that. So their place is right over here behind Depot Park, their studio. So welcome.
Welcome to each and every one of you. Pete, you need to come back up, please. We get Pete again today, double duty. Today, we recognize our Rotarians who celebrate birthdays here in the month of October. And we also have a special celebration because Ginger has let Jason out today to be with us. It's their wedding anniversary. Jason Shank, 22 years with his lovely bride. You want to sing happy anniversary? You know that one? Little River Band? No, he doesn't. We'll save that for a later date. If you are here and you're called upon for your October birthday, bring your money to Greg Young. Where's Greg? He's in the food line. All right, we have a basket up here. Drop your dollar. If you hear your name, make it up. What's that? Yeah. Davis Rembert, Paul Clayton, Wynn Phillips, Bob Franks, Rich McGraw, Marty Meisner, Kathy Pierce, Tom Cousins. Hey, bring the mic just down a little bit, probably on the blue, on number 2. Thank you. Where was I? Kathy, Thomas, David Nicholson. Uh-oh, what was that? Brian Kramer, Lee Purvis, Scott Schroeder, David Chadwick, Matt Marino, Jay Hutto, Rogers Bartley, Peter Enwall. Show me the money, Peter. Where is it? Put it in the basket. Brett Saunders, Dink Henderson. He already gave. Brandon Morris, Rusty Daugherty, John Pastore, Guillermo Diaz, Julie Waldman, Michelle Farkas, and Toby Monaco. It's a long list of birthdays here in October. Back on the microphone to lead us in happy birthday. Here's Pete.
With gusto. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, fellow Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Okay, Pete, you can get back to your birthday cake now. We have 3 announcements before we have a special treat today. Not going to tip my hand yet, but our first announcement regarding the Seafood Spectacular. Please welcome to our podium, Dwight McKee.
Thank you. Save the date. Our Seafood Spectacular is going to be out at Hatchet Creek on November 10th at 5:30. Tickets are $60 each in advance, or 5 tickets for $250 and $75 at the door. So get your tickets in advance. Come over here and see Wes after the meeting. We're also going to have 2 work days out at Hatchet Creek, Saturday, October 29th and Saturday, November 5th. So we'll send out some reminders for that to get some volunteers to help spruce up our Rotary place out there at Hatchet Creek and rake some sod and do some stuff like that, dust off some chairs. So we're looking forward to a great event. We've got a wonderful menu of eclectic seafood things I'll be able to share with you in future meetings. So we're gonna have a great time. So again, November 10th at 5:30. That is the Thursday before the Veterans Day long weekend. So 2nd Thursday in November. All right, thank you.
Next, an announcement regarding the Ethics in Business Awards. Please welcome Frank Mason.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Ethics in Business Award. The applications are now open. This is an award that has been done in conjunction with the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce since 2011. It honors and recognizes individuals of businesses in the community that exemplify the ideals of Rotary and consistently demonstrate strong commitment to the highest ethical practices and facets of their businesses. Nominees are interviewed by the UF Warrington School of Business, their ethics ambassadors. I'd like to encourage each of you to come up with a nomination or multiple. The strength of the award is a result of the strength of the nominees. So we look to this group to provide those nominations. Please consider who within your group, your network would be an appropriate person to nominate for the award. The nomination forms are located on DACDB, and you can contact Scott Winslow or any of the committee members for a nomination form. And we encourage everyone, like I said, to nominate someone. The nominations are not limited to those of us that are Rotarians. They're open to anybody in the community. So if you have friends outside of this group that you'd like to suggest they also consider nominations for, that would be wonderful. The deadline for submission is Friday, November 4th. The ethics ambassadors for the Warrington School of Business will make a recommendation to the committee, and the committee will then make the selection of the award recipient. It will be announced at one of our January 2023 meetings, as well as the Chamber of Commerce's annual meeting in February. Again, submit your nominations either online or to Scott Winsler. And please take time to consider nominating someone this year for us. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
One last announcement before our special treat today. Rotary Youth Exchange, please welcome to our podium, Deborah Newell.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to let you know, follow up that we have the parent-student information meeting for this whole area, Alachua County, basically scheduled for tomorrow evening at the Millhopper Library Branch, Room B. And if you know of anyone or you have a student in your household who might be interested in participating, get them there. Make sure that the student and at least one parent arrives. It starts at 5:30 and we're going to 6:45. And I thank you to Bill and Jane for going out to a couple of the schools, and we will have our district chair of RI here tomorrow evening to help with the presentation. So please lift that up in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. And now time for our special treat today. Please welcome to our podium for a poem. Michael, stay in your seat, please, Michael. Please welcome John Gregory.
Today's poem is called Native Americans Hunting. You all know about Columbus Day is no longer Columbus Day because he came over and he made the Indians. Well, anyway, that's anyway. Native Americans are wondering about certain braves who are wanting to eat meat. A vegetarian, they agree, is a brave who's bad at hunting. Years ago, braves would debate. From Alaska to Russia, they'd go first rate. But they indeed failed, and they all wailed. They couldn't get their bearing straight. No. An Indian shoots, I confess, at buffalo without much success. He looked at his spear, dull it seemed to hear. Everybody knows it's pointless. Two Indians, thinking about their roasted fish stew, sat in a kayak, got cold. What to do? Light a fire, kayak did fall, proving once and for all, you can have your kayak and heat it too. Happy day off.
Enlightening as always. Thank you very much. Just for the record, the Indians are still in Cleveland and the Redskins are still in Washington. Thank you very much. Let's continue our meeting now with your president, Greg Young.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see everyone here today and those on Zoom. Bill and Carol Zagel are trying to join us on Zoom. I'm not sure if they will be able to because they are traveling to be with Carol's ailing mother. And so along with Ann Gay, please keep them in your thoughts. Also, I want to mention Keith Balcom. Could you raise your hand, Keith? Keith has been on Zoom the whole time, doesn't miss a meeting. Now he's first time back. So we want to welcome Keith into the room. And regarding the tragic impact of Hurricane Ian, there are two ways in which you can help support those people that have been impacted in Southwest and Central Florida. You may have seen District Governor Jeff Michaelman's request for disaster relief funds. That we'll be sending out an email including that, and also Santa Fe is collecting supplies for those who were impacted by Ian. Information for both of those will be sent out. So please be on the lookout for those later today. There is a Rotary auction. Elena, could you raise your hand? Elena and Richard, Rotary Auction committee meeting today after this meeting. Okay, today, moving on. Today, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce a friend and also the environmental journalist and resident at the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, where she specializes in water and climate issues. And Cynthia Barnett. And Cynthia has written several award-winning books. And her latest book, which I have my autographed copy of, is Sounds of the Sea, Seashells and the Fate of the Oceans. And I believe that's going to be the topic of her talk today. And just to mention, that book was recognized by NPR Science Fridays as one of the best science books of the year. So with that, please welcome up Ms. Cynthia Barnett.
Ready? Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for that nice introduction and for having me for the lovely surprise of my friend, John Moran. I am here to talk about my latest book, but before I start, I want to say something a bit more personal. All right, is this going to work? Let's see. Yes, it is on, definitely. Let me run over and see if it's on. Deborah and I didn't plan this. In fact, I've never met Deborah, but because I was speaking to this Rotary Club, I had to start. And I don't know if I can do this without crying. That's how profoundly I feel about this. But I want to start by expressing mine and my husband's personal thanks to this Rotary Club for your huge impact on the life of our son, whose name is Will. You sent him to Hungary through your Rotary Youth Exchange when he was in 10th grade. And as you can see on the left, he was a really excited 16-year-old when he met his host family in Budapest at the airport. Today, I want to report back to you and tell you that he's a senior studying international justice at Leiden University's Honors College in The Hague. And as at right, so that's his college in the middle. And then at right is his 21st birthday picture that was taken just a few weeks ago on the roof of his very first apartment in The Hague. And this international life that he lives really does stretch back to this Rotary Club. Yeah. So Will now speaks fluent Hungarian. He is learning Dutch and his minor is French. None of these places, people, or languages were part of our lives when he applied to RYE. The program has turned him into a global citizen, a unifying soul, and an ambassador for Florida wherever he goes. And as you'll hear later, I really believe that unifying people is more crucial than science or anything else to solve the seemingly intractable problems of our times, including environmental problems. So thank you for making a difference on behalf of individual young people like Will, and indeed for the larger world. And if there are any parents or friends who are thinking about going to the meeting tomorrow night, obviously I can't urge it strongly enough. I'm wondering, you might have to forward the slides for me. Yeah. can you forward to the next one? Okay, there we go. So, nope, back to number 3. Okay. I wonder maybe we have to do this without slides, which is too bad because it's such a gloriously visual program, but that's okay. I'm sure I can do it. So my new book is a cultural and natural history of the seashell. And it's a strange thing, right? To try to help people understand major environmental problems like water and climate change through something as tiny as a seashell. But when John and I were students at the University of Florida College of Journalism, where I now teach, we learned this really important lesson to take a really tiny thing to tell a big story. That sometimes something small is the best way to tell a big story. And so I had written a lot about water and climate change all over the world. And I was actually visiting Sanibel, Florida, giving a talk about water when I went to a lovely little museum called the Bailey Matthews National Shell Museum. Has anyone ever been there? Yes. Oh, wonderful. So I was at the museum giving this talk, and I went out to dinner later with the director, and she told me such a disturbing story. They had done a survey of visitors to find out what visitors already knew about seashells. And these people were mostly tourists to Florida visiting with their children. And the surveys revealed that 90% of visitors didn't know that a seashell was built by a living animal. Most people thought it was some kind of a rock or a stone. And again, a lot of these people, a lot of the respondents were children. And that statistic bothered me so much. I could hardly fall asleep that night. I kept thinking about it and what that meant for our disconnection from nature. And by the time I woke up, I knew that I wanted to write a book of seashells. And so the idea behind this book, and I'm sorry the slides aren't working because the seashells themselves are extraordinarily beautiful, as are the animals that build them. And one of my favorite pictures in the whole show is a John Moran, really iconic John Moran photograph of a scallop. So if they can get just one of these working, I'm going to ask them to show you John Moran's photograph of a scallop. But anyway, so it struck me, there's so many wonderful metaphors here. One is that we've always tried to listen to seashells to help understand the world around us. And another is the way we love the oceans, right? We've always loved the oceans for the beautiful exterior rather than what's happening beneath the waves and for the life beneath the waves. And it's really been that same way with a lot of the world. So it struck me that we always held seashells to our ears to try to listen to their polished whirls. And what's really remarkable is how often they answer with pretty clear truths in murky times. So extinct shelled creatures like the spiraling ammonoids gave fossilized proof of evolution. Seashells on mountaintops told a story of shifting continents and rising and falling seas, articulating an Earth history much older than the 6,000 years suggested by the Bible. I opened the book with some Neanderthal shells that had been collected. They all had perfectly round holes in the top. And they were kind of a cache that were found in a Neanderthal cave in Spain. And those shells are some of the evidence that have helped modern archaeologists see that Neanderthal people did have a creative sense and an aesthetic sense. They knew that these shells had been collected for beauty and some other aesthetic sense, and not only for food. So in all kinds of wonderful ways, I started to see seashells as the Earth's great fact checkers. So seashells were the earliest known keepsakes tucked into graves. Oh, you got it. If you can go through a little bit more, let's see if I can. Nope, it's not working for me.
It's slow.
Oh, it's just slow. Okay. So yeah, I'll just talk and you might catch up to where I am. You'll see those, I'll tell you when the Neanderthal shells come up. But seashells there's the ammonite. Seashells are the earliest known keepsakes tucked into graves. The small cone shell, Conus abreus, which I'm hoping will pop up in a moment, still holds its tent after 75,000 years interred. The stubby cone was unearthed from the grave of a 4 to 6 month old infant in a large rock shelter in South Africa known as Border Cave. It had been notched by hand, strung onto a pendant, and worn for many years before being placed with the Stone Age baby. So it won't forward, huh? It's just stuck. Yep, I don't think it's working. Okay, great, great. They're the Neanderthal shells.
There it goes.
And these are the Conus abreus that I just described, that were the earliest. This is literally the earliest known keepsake tucked into a grave. That was the keepsake tucked into the 75,000-year-old infant grave. And I just love to think of that early human 75,000 years ago, maybe a mother or father, having worn that necklace for so long and then tucking it into the grave. So seashells were jewelry before gems, and they were money before coins. In the summer of 2019, Will and I actually traveled to the Maldives and then on to West Africa to follow what was an epic route of the first global money, which was not cryptocurrency, as you hear the crypto guys say sometimes. The first global money was a cowrie, this cowrie shell called money cowries. And this was quite a devastating story. One of the many human stories that I tell, again, using something small to tell a big story. The devastating part of this story is that cowries purchased an estimated third of the enslaved Africans who were forced to the Americas. And that story reveals what I feel is the book's most important meditation, and that is that we won't be able to fix environmental problems without working on human injustices. So again, in both nature and the human story, I came to see shells as kind of fact checkers. John Moran and I are both from Fort Myers, where Hurricane Ian hit ground zero. And I recently have a piece in the past couple days. I've been working on a piece for Politico magazine that I can send to anyone who's interested. But it's all about the vision of the Florida dream and how that has always changed over time, and how hurricanes often were a result of why that dream changed. And so in the book and in this article in Politico, I start with people called the Calusa, who were the people of Southwest Florida living there when the Spanish arrived in the 1500s. And the Calusa had these extraordinary mounds and city centers on Pine Island, which was kind of hidden behind Sanibel, and Mound Key, which was hidden behind Estero Island, which is the island that Fort Myers Beach is on. So there are a terrible lot of lessons from the Calusa and all the other generations of Floridians who have lived since. And that's not what I'm here to talk about, but I want to put you in that mind of that, that long look at Florida, looking at Florida backward all those years, as a way to maybe help us look at long-term Florida and what it will look like when we build and rebuild this area. So the Calusa, they built these extraordinary cities of shell, and I had a lot of fun writing about the Calusa and their, when John and I were kids, and you can still go now. Have any of you been to the shell factory in Fort Myers? So yeah, my joke now is that before there was a shell factory in Fort Myers, there were shell work factories in Fort Myers. The Calusa shell work was all over the place, and most of the tools they created were from the really iron hard shell of the lightning whelk, which is, this is what some of their tools looked like. So they would sharpen the outer lip into cutting edges for hollowing out their huge canoes, which were lashed together like modern pontoons. They honed lightning whelks into spear points, pounders, perforators, fishing weights, and many other tools. Kind of the most remarkable story to me in the book about the Calusa and their shell work and these lightning whelks are the, oops, I need to go back to the, darn it. Shoot, we got way ahead there. That is, has anyone been to Cahokia outside St. Louis? That's a look at the Cahokia mounds outside St. Louis. And the kind of amazing thing about that is that Cahokia was kind of the first major city in North America. It was home to about 30,000 people in its day, rising right across the Mississippi from St. Louis, Missouri. And the mounds now, much of the mounds were taken down to build highways and to build cities. But those that remain are full of marine shells. And by far the largest number of marine shells found in these mounds are lightning whelks from the southwest coast of Florida. And the scientists can tell exactly what part of the Gulf of Mexico a certain lightning whelk came from. And so they know there was this extraordinary connection between Southwest Florida and Cahokia. So all of this is really beautiful. And I don't have time to tell you that all these stories from the book. Greg's giving me a good sign that I have about 10 minutes. But I just want to get across that the idea behind the book was to show also, is it possible to make that video play, or will the video not play? That's okay. No problem. But these are also animals that swim and crawl and burrow in the sand. They build somersaults. They look at you with curious eyes. They do all kinds of amazing things. And they're also, oh, there's one. There's the eye. I'm just trying to get there. Oh, I wonder if I should give up on the. Yeah, okay. If you could go to the cowrie, which is the one after this, the hump-shaped one. They are also these really extraordinary architects that build their shells with minerals from the surrounding sea, primarily calcium carbonate. So they put down layers and layers and layers of shell as they grow, and their reliance on those minerals makes them sentinels for what's happening to the oceans. So the oceans have absorbed nearly a third of the extra carbon dioxide that humans have sent into the atmosphere since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, making the oceans a third more acidic since that time. The oceans have also taken up 90% of the resulting heat trapping gases. So one way that's kind of amazing to think about the oceans, when you think about climate change and what is happening already, in terms of heat on the earth. Just imagine how bad things would have been if the oceans hadn't been protecting us by absorbing all that extra heat. So in the ocean, these changes can seem invisible to our human eyes, but seashells are really showing us, just like they once revealed evolution and geologic change and evidence of ancient people, they are now really showing us what's happening in the ocean. So the first thing is ocean acidification, which I just jumped over that. But the second thing is warming. And many of you have probably read about some of the devastating bleaching on places like the Great Barrier Reef. This is a look at tiny shells called pteropods or sea butterflies. This was the first place scientists started to see acidification. So these are all the little pock marks and weakening of shells. Now on the next slide, you can see many shells are dying of the heat. And that's also true for scallops in the Northeast. When the baymen have gone out for the scallop harvest over the last several years, they have come up with dead scallops. And this is a result of ocean warming. So I'm hoping now I'll be able to show you, oh, I got to go back to that beautiful John Moran scallop. Two more. Yep, I'm not clicking it. Okay. I think we could probably leave it there for the whole time because this is my favorite. This is my favorite. This is one of my favorite pictures that John Moran has ever taken, which is saying a lot because he is such an extraordinary nature photographer. But I think what I love about it is what it represents to me, right? By the way, what year did you take this? Around 2010. Okay, so as you saw, many of the scallops in the Northeast where there is a commercial scallop harvest are not surviving the warming seas. As you see all over Florida, many scallops, oysters, other shellfish, and manatees are not surviving generally the pollution and the loss of their seagrass beds. But here where we live, in the Big Bend of Florida and in the Nature Coast, the scallops are still doing okay. So there is some over harvesting, but in terms of the pollution, the water is much cleaner up here than it is in many other parts of Florida. And I think that is so important for us to remember, right? How we can protect this incredible area from the pollution that is happening in Tampa Bay and Pine Island Sound and so many other parts of Florida where shellfish, manatees, and other animals are really in trouble. So I want to get to your questions, and there were some other things I wanted to show you. At the end of the book, I kind of follow, I want to end on a note of hope. Another thing that's really important when we work on climate change, and those of you who work on water know, you can't just hit people over the head with horrible, dark news. That's why when you look at John Moran's exhibits, you will see beauty beside pollution, because it's really important to know what can be and what we have done, right? So the important thing for me in my work, and that I try to talk to students about, is to balance the hard truths of climate change and water with hope for the future. So not in a way that is falsely optimistic, but in a way that helps people understand a path ahead. And I think the scallop is a good symbol of that, and that I'll probably end it there. But one of the scientists I followed around, and actually a lot of scientists I talked to over the years that it took me to write this book, are working now on the kinds of things you work on. They're working on things like diplomacy and peace and becoming ambassadors who are good at, people who are good helping scientists become good at talking to Congress, for example, or talking to the Florida legislature, or talking to their communities. So all those things that I started with, that I admire you so much for working on, including the work you do with young people, really turns out to be the most important answers to climate change, to water strife, and to the other issues we face. Those foundations that you hold high, including international peace and unifying ourselves as Floridians and Americans, are really just as important as the science, if not more. So I think I'm going to stop there, especially since my slides are going too slow for me to catch up, and then I can answer any questions you have. But again, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything you do.
Not any Zoom questions yet, but I encourage everybody to try.
Before Greg has a question, I have a question about scalloping season.
Yes.
So I'm known as a scallop whisperer. ESPN's helicopter typically flies over me when I'm scalloping. That's another story. What are your thoughts on shortening the scalloping season in the Nature Coast and where we can scallop here to maybe have a better season? I know they come in and out every year. One year it's very, very good, and the next year is way off, and then they kind of come and go.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the cycles of a lot of scallops and a few scallops is that that's always been the case throughout history. It's one of their quirks, but the fact is, and especially if you look to the south of us at Crystal River and some of those areas, we scallopers, and I love to scallop too, we scallopers really have over harvested these animals. So there's only so much the scientists have been able to do in terms of aquaculture and renewal of the population. So we have to get a handle on the scallop harvest. And if we don't, there won't be any more scallops to harvest. And I have devoted a chapter to bay scallops in the Sound of the Sea. And I kind of tell that story. And this is another thing I tried to do in the Sound of the Sea. I tried to be very honest about my own footprint and my own evolution as a Floridian and someone. My father and I used to go spearfishing and spearfish and collect queen conchs. That's not something I would do anymore now that I know the story of the queen conch. And I also raised my kids scalloping in the Gulf of Mexico. We don't scallop anymore because of what we know about the scallops, but it's still, great to be there and to take pictures underwater. And that has become sort of my hobby. In fact, my husband still scallops, and while he's scalloping, I snorkel around and take underwater photos.
Quick comment, really. First off, thank you for the presentation. I'll get to that more later, but I feel like we're so fortunate to have so many talented people like yourself and John and others in a community of this size, and you bring a wealth of information. And so I'm so glad you brought this to our attention, and I hope the club is
Thank you.
knows that one of the areas that Rotary focuses on now, an avenue of service, is environmental issues, and climate change, it falls within that. So
yeah, for sure. And a great thing about Rotary, I knew Rotary from my work on water. As you know, Rotary works on water all over the world. The great thing Rotary has been able to do on climate change, as you know, there are problems with people not believing climate change or thinking that it is made up in some way, or that humans aren't responsible. And Rotary across the United States has had a really great impact on helping local communities understand and prepare for climate change. Rotary has a whole climate change curriculum now. And I had a student who did a rural Rotary road show. She went on all over North Florida presenting on climate change. And it was just fantastic because she, you know, as you know, when you go in person and talk to people, it's a lot more effective than sharing things on social media and so on. So I think that's one of Rotary's most important roles nationally, is to help Americans understand climate change and its impact. So thank you. Oh, there's one more.
I have one question, Greg, if I could. Back here.
Oh, hi.
How you
Yes.
doing? So you talked about hope.
Yes.
And so I was wondering, what are you hopeful about? Do you have any hopeful stories to share? You know, something that actually is impacting where we're going?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that was the end of the book, and the end of the slideshow are about some of the alternative energies and other things that are being inspired by the ocean. So the big thing is the clean energy transition that is possible. You know, there are scientists all over the world working on what that alternative energy future is going to look like. So it's a matter of putting the systems in place to help people embrace it. But that clean energy future is possible, and it's the most important thing we can do in terms of lowering our reliance on fossil fuels. And then I do want to say, in the wake of the hurricane, and this is something that I just have written about in a couple of days, the last couple of days. You know, it's incredibly devastating down there. They're still finding people in Sanibel who didn't survive the storm, who they didn't know about, but they're going door to door. And the thing to say there is that it could be an opportunity to really remake the Florida dream. Every time we remade the Florida dream, from agriculture to development and selling sunshine, it was often as a result of a crisis, from the Great Depression to major hurricanes that have hit. And I think it's very possible that that hurricane will somehow inspire a move inland and a degrowth of the barrier islands, and a move inland to sustainable 100% alternative fuel communities. And so, like I said, if anybody's interested in that story, I can send it to you. But I think that's important, and I think it's important for us as a community to know that's coming and to prepare for the extra population we will see when that happens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. You can stay for just 1 minute. So if you're able to stay for additional questions after, I hope. So I want to thank you so much and present this to you, this certificate, okay, which signifies that a donation will be made to the Cade Museum in your honor, to help the scholarship fund here for underserved communities. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank everyone for attending. I know we're over just a little bit. I want to really quickly mention again how many talented people we have in our community. John Moran, before you were a nature photographer, I understand you were a rock and roll photographer, house photographer for the Great Southern Music Hall, which his exhibition is up at the Matheson History Museum currently. So I hope you get over to see it. It's amazing. It's the best exhibition ever at the Matheson. So I hope you can join us again next week when our speaker will be Rotary International Past President John Germ. He will be speaking to us about polio, and the topic is Rotary Brings Hope, Eradicating Polio, which is our major mission for eradication. That's one of the major focuses of Rotary. So I hope you can join us then. Please continue to invite your friends and associates to Rotary to help make our impact bigger and better. Quote of the day. Thank you, Tom, for this. Would you learn the secret of the sea? Only those who brave its dangers comprehend its mysteries. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And the winning ticket for today is 293, last 3 digits. and we're adjourned.